Hey guys, welcome back. So a few weeks ago I mentioned that I was building a Han in Carbonite finally. It was in the plans. Now, ever since then, I've slowly been doing some cuts here and there and measuring things and getting things marked off to be cut. And today I finally got far enough that I have the box built, which you can see behind me here. Oh. And this is just the very, very basics of the box. It's just started. Just the sides, the top, the back, and the front with a little bit of an inset because my Han needs to have that textured surround made because the resin castings I have is just his head, his hands, chest, legs, and feet, but there's no surrounding textured material, so I have to make that myself. So this inset is so that whatever I decide to go with will sit in here, and there's a little room to work. So I cut out the tops and the bottoms. I measured all those areas, and I cut those out with a jigsaw. And then the sides, I also cut out with a jigsaw, but I made a little template here. Now I drew up, based on the plans, I drew up splines in 3D Studio Max and then exported them to Illustrator, printed myself a template, and then cut this out on the bandsaw out of MDF so I could just lay these in place and trace them, make sure they're all right, and they all match. If I had a router table, I would have cut out the inverse of this and then made a template that I could basically stick on the wood and then put on the router table and then just cut with the router, which would be easier. I do have a router, and they make bits that do that, but I don't have one. So it's kind of that, should I go to the store and get one of the bits, or should I just cut it with a jigsaw? In retrospect, I probably should have bought the bit for the router and gone that way. I think that would have been an easier way to do it, but it all came out fine. This worked great. Just something to note. As of right now, this is basically just held together with glue, and I use a pin nailer to tack all the pieces in place. Now, a pin nailer, the nails are tiny. They're not very strong, but they're just enough to make sure that everything is nice and straight and that the glue sets properly and holds it all together. I still need to build the internal structure here. So in the back of the piece, which is facing downward right now, there will be an internal framework that will keep all the pieces nice and square, make sure that there's no bowing or any warping, to make sure they're nice and sturdy, because right now I can kind of flex it with my hand. I don't know if you can see this on camera or not. So that'll be all shored up and strong. And then I have to build the inset boxes for the control panels, and at the top and the bottom there's some insets as well. So I need to build those, and then I will get on to bondoing the surface to make sure everything's nice and smooth. That step is something that I'll get into in a second, but I'm going to do a first layer of Bondo, make sure all the holes are filled. That's the most important part. Make sure all like little knots and a couple little weird spots in the plywood are filled in, and then I'm going to use a router and round off all the corners so it looks like the real movie prop. That'll be the next step. And then more Bondo and make sure it's smooth. Now, the reason I'm using Bondo and plywood and smoothing it as opposed to using MDF, which pretty much comes already smooth and nice, is mainly weight. The MDF is very heavy. To get what would be strong enough to use for this, I'd probably have to use at least 1/2 inch MDF, maybe even 3/4 to be a little safer, and that would be probably 3 times the weight of this. This whole thing is very light right now. And being that I want to make this a shelf that opens up, or like a little cabinet inside, the lighter I can get it, the better. So I bought 3/8 inch plywood, pretty cheap plywood too. I didn't get the good stuff. I went really cheap. I figured if I'm going to have to Bondo and smooth it all anyway, then it doesn't matter if the surface has a little bit of texture. So I will start getting that Bondoed, smooth, clean, and pretty, and that'll be good. I also think plywood holds up better than MDF in the long run. MDF has a tendency to, if it gets water on it at all, gets any moisture, it'll swell up, and then it never goes back to the proper shape. Plywood is a little sensitive to moisture, but not the same way. Once this is all built, it'll be pretty rock solid. I don't think I'm gonna have to worry about it. But plywood on its own, if I didn't have this reinforced and it got wet, it could warp a little bit, but not like MDF just gets puffed up, gets gross and weird. So I'm leaving that out for now. Except maybe the boxes I might use a little MDF in there, but not much. But the rest is all plywood. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it right now. This is just an update. I don't know when I'm going to get these boxes built. That'll probably be like 5 more weeks or something until these are done and in here. And I'll be back with more once I get to it. If you got any questions about this build, let me know, and I'll try to help out. I'll see if I can find the templates again, and I'll post those in the description if I can. When I found them, it was over 2 years ago, and I saved them on my computer. If they don't show up anywhere, I'll repost them. There may actually be newer templates that I don't have yet. So anyway, this is where it's at. Glad it's this far. I got to get back to work on 5 other things. So it was good talking to you guys. See you soon.